Welcome back to Around the World in a Bowl of Soup with me, Chef Ricky. This week we are exploring a new recipe from our very own Jinjin, community educator with Spokane Public Library. Jinjin is featuring a very traditional recipe from East Asia. She's doing a wonton soup, and she takes a major shortcut here, but it's a shortcut that works, and we hope it makes it a little bit more approachable for you all. The other great thing is that Jinjin is using ground pork in this, with lots of nice rich marbled fat, but they might not have that at the grocery store. So a tip for you is to ask your butcher for ground pork that they do in-house. And a lot of times that's gonna have a lot more rich and fatty pieces, which is delicious in this recipe, keeps that filling of that wonton nice and creamy and juicy and flavorful. So use that tip, ask that butcher for the best ground pork possible.
Hi there, I'm Jen, and today I'm going to make a wonton soup. Making wonton soup is very easy as long as you cheat a little bit. The main ingredient of this is ground pork. And I prefer ground pork because in wonton soup, you're looking for the smooth texture, smooth feeling when you're eating it. And pork, of course, offers that the best. But you can also substitute that with ground chicken, ground turkey, or ground beef. If you're using ground beef, I highly recommend that you use one with maybe 80% fat or maybe more, 75% fat one. Here I have about a pound of ground pork. And as you can see, this ground pork is homemade. So it's a little bit on the fat side. There's a lot of fat in this. So I'm going to counter that with about a quarter pound of ground venison to counteract that. To get that smooth, retain that smooth texture, but at the same time cut down the fat a little bit. So that is your main ingredient. 1 cup of finely chopped green onion or more. Then about 1 tablespoon, this is about 1 tablespoon of finely chopped ginger. And if you're looking for that truly very intense oriental flavor, you can always add to these 2 ingredients right here. Then these 2 following ingredients are optional. Especially if you're using ground beef, you would want to add about 1 to 2 chicken eggs to loosen up the tightness, the dryness of that beef. But I'm cooking for someone who is allergic to eggs, so instead of using eggs, I'm going to finely dice up some shrimps. And the reason I use shrimp is not only it will loosen up the dryness of the meat, it will also add to the sweetness of the mixture as well. So when I said if you use ground beef, use 80% fat, that was incorrect. It should be 80% lean. I'm sure you know what I mean. After that, about half a teaspoon of salt. Half a teaspoon is about right for me, so you might need a little bit more than that. You tweak that to your own taste. If you're using ground beef, when it's very dry, feel free to add a little bit of good oil, such as olive oil. Here I am giving it a dash of sesame oil just for that taste. And finally, this is completely optional and it's me, okay? It's not necessary, but I'm going to use a little bit of this spice called 5-spice, Chinese 5-spice. Mix it up well, and if you don't feel like you have enough salt, feel free to add soy sauce to the mixture as well. This is the consistency that you're looking for, and as you can see, you can probably use a lot more green onion than I'm using. I'm using a whole bunch and set aside a little bit for garnish later, but you can probably about use 2 bunches if you want. Now the wrapper part is where you can cheat a little bit and save yourself some work. Basically, if you want to do it the hard way, you can use 4 cups of flour with 2 cups of water, knead it really well, set it aside for about 30 minutes and let it sit. Then you can cut them into chunks and roll them up paper thin and then cut them into squares like this. But I don't mind cheating if I can find good substitute. And I did find this brand that has no chemicals and no artificial coloring, nothing, pretty straightforward. So I can live with that. But if you want to have it to engage children, that'll be a fun family project. So quite simple. You take about 1 teaspoon of the fillings here, and with store-bought wrappers, it might be a little bit dry, so you wet the 4 sides of the wrapper. And I'm going to show you the easiest way to wrap it, because there are as many ways as you can think of to wrap this. Bring the 2 sides to meet, give it a good pinch. Take both ends, tuck it in like this and give it a good pinch. Just like a dumpling. And in fact, wonton is a dumpling. Basically a small dumpling. Okay, so it took me about 20 minutes to wrap all 50 of this wonton, and I still have a lot of leftovers, about a third. So a pound of meat is about right. But you can always freeze this for your next time, or you can just use this in other soup. Okay, so it's time to make wonton soup. Okay, so today I'm cooking for 2, but 50 of this wonton is it's about 2 meals for 2 for us. So I'm going to boil 25 of this, and to boil for 2, I use about 6 cups of broth. This broth comprises half homemade chicken stock and half water. So bring your broth, pretty straightforward, bring your broth to a gentle boil and drop your wonton gently into the broth. And the broth itself is unseasoned. After you do that, make sure you give it a nice, gentle but firm stir to make sure it does not stick to the bottom of the pan. Bring to a gentle boil for about 3 minutes. When the wonton floats to the top, you know it's done. If you are going to make this into a complete meal, you can always add vegetables to this at this point. I'm going to add some sweet peas to this. Good choice for vegetable for this soup would be soft vegetables like spinach, napa cabbage, or bean sprout. Sometimes when you use homemade stock, it could be a little bit overwhelming and too strong. So this is when you make your tweaking. And your wonton is ready. And here is the finishing touch. A dab of green onion and a dab of soy sauce. And you can also add a dab of sesame oil, but I'm not going to do that because I feel the filling itself is already very rich. But by all means, if you want to do that, by all means. There you have it.